Hello YouTube friends. Today I'm going to walk you through how I make my little mug rugs. This is just one of the designs that I make. Um, this is a little trailer camper kind of thing, and it's a little quilted piece, and it's considered a mug rug. It's used to put beside your chair, to put your cup of tea on and a cookie or a muffin or whatever. It's basically a fancy little coaster. So I need to make a whole bunch of these, and I thought, well, since as I'm working on some of these, maybe I'll just turn the camera on and you can see how I put them together. So this is just a bunch of scrap fabrics. That's all I use. I have a huge basket just full of little tiny pieces, and I don't throw out anything. As you can see, some of the pieces along the top, this little thing, I mean, that's a very small piece of fabric. But if I didn't have that little piece of fabric, I wouldn't have the little shutter for over my windows. So yeah, I don't throw anything out. So these are very time consuming, not hard, but they are time consuming. They're piddly. And I love piddly, so to me they're fun. Somebody else might say, oh, that's just like too much fooling around with little tiny pieces. I don't have the time or the inclination, but I love doing this kind of little piddly stuff. So basically you get out all your scraps and choose whatever kind of colors you want to go with. Now, the patterns that I use are from coloring books, actually. I go on the internet, or I have a bunch of old coloring books, and I look for an image that I want to make, and then I cut it up in a bunch of pieces, and then I use each piece for a template. Now there's coloring book pages, and then there's coloring book pages. The trick about this is you don't want to have something that is so detailed that it's impossible to transfer to fabric. So my advice is to go to the simplest coloring books, like the age 1 and 2 and 3, not the age 8, 9, and 10. The simpler the better. You'll be able to cut up your design much easier if it's just a very simple coloring page. So that's all this was. This was just a little coloring page that I took out of a coloring book, and I cut it up into a million pieces. I just cut out whatever I wanted, however I wanted to outline with fabric, and there it is. So this is a completed one. And I have down here, I have a bunch of pieces that I've already cut out for another one. I don't know if you can see this. I'll try and make sure that this is within your view here. No, I guess this is better. So here would be the top piece. Here would be the bottom piece. I'll move it down a little bit. And for these, because they're not a square finished piece, they're shaped like the little thing. I use just a scrap piece of fabric, recycled pill cases, anything, because you're not going to see this part here. You will on some of the other designs that I do, but not particularly this one. So that's one piece, two pieces, three pieces. See, there you've got your basic, should be doing it this way, I guess, shouldn't I? So there you have your basic little thing. Now your wheel is another piece. That's what I mean by piddly. And there's your white wall of your wheel and your hubcap cover. And then the door is actually two pieces, only because I don't know why I made it two pieces. I should just have a one piece. But I find it's actually easier to do it in two pieces because of this cut line here. And then there would be the window. Now the big window goes here, and the little window goes here, and then you have the little, whatever they call these, over your windows, and that one over the door. And there you are, you're done. Except that you're not done. What I do, because, I should go back to this. After you do all of this, you're going to applique each piece. I go around each piece with a very small zigzag and zigzag it down to this piece of fabric. So to do that very easily, obviously if you took that to the machine and started doing it, it's all going to wiggle around. So what I do is I use a little bit of Heat and Bond, this sticky stuff, and I cut little pieces and I heat it down so it's somewhat stuck down. It makes it easier for when you go to the sewing machine. So here I've got one that I've done that with. You see it's on this piece of fabric. It's not stitched down yet, but it's stuck down. It's not going to go anywhere. So now I can take this to the sewing machine and just start stitching around all these pieces however I want to. And then what I would do after that is I would cut out a piece identical to the outline of this for the backing, and right sides together. Oh, I can't do that. Pretend this is the right side. I would stitch all the way around it, put batting in between, and then I quilted at the end. This is actually quilted. I don't know if you can see that it is, but then I go back and I quilt however I want to make it stick out. So it's not rocket science, and this is the way I do it. I don't know, there's a lot of people making mug rugs. Everybody, I'm sure, has their own way of doing things. This is how I do it. It's probably way different than other people do it, but it works for me, so that's how I do it. So I think we'll stick this one down. I'll show you how I do it. Now, there's many different kinds of this. I'll call it Heat and Bond. That's just one name for this. There's many, many different manufacturers of this, and it comes in different strengths. This one is the finest that you can get, and I like this the best because the other ones I find is really hard on the needles, and it gets very tough to go through when you're having a bunch of layers of material. And the only reason I'm doing this is not really, I just really want to just attach it in a few places. I don't do the whole piece. Like I'll do a little piece here and a little piece here. That's enough. So you can get this in this very fine. And then I have a few different, this is a little heavier one. I don't care for this one that much. It's a little heavier. And then there's the ones that are on the paper, like this. This is a really strong one. So what you would do is you would iron your first piece on here. The only benefit I see of this is if you wanted to do the whole piece, you iron it on, then you can cut it out, and then you peel the paper off and put it back down. I don't need that for this kind of work, so for me, like I say, this fine one works the best. So we're going to start. We're going to have your iron on well, they say on a low dry heat. I found sometimes a low dry heat doesn't really work. So what I do is I just cut off snips of this, and then I will take it to just make sure that it's not going to stick anywhere else. I'll put it there, and I'll iron it down. See? Oops. A little bit more. I'll also make a suggestion. There, it's down. I'll also make a suggestion that if you're going to do this kind of work, get yourself an old iron like I have, and only use this old iron just for this kind of thing, because you will at some point, there's another little piece I made here. I'm just going to put that there, and that'll hold this part down. And this doesn't have to be straight because it's not going to be square anyway. So that piece is nice. Now I will do this piece next. Yeah, at some point you will get this sticky stuff on your iron, and believe you me, it will not come off. You will be very upset with yourself if you ruin an iron, and I've ruined several, so no, that's not right. What am I doing? Good golly, Dale. So let's see, no, that's not going to work. I have to put this on here. So when you put on a piece like this, now make sure that you've butted it right up until the other piece. You don't want any gaps, because then it's going to be, you're going to have to use a larger stitch to catch them both when you applique. And try not to have any of this sticky stuff over another piece either, because your iron will pick it up. I'll do this little piece here because that might move. And I always have a little dark, this is just a lid, but to put all my little pieces of scraps, and well, I'll take these out, they don't need to be here. But in particular, these tiny little pieces of this heat and bond, these I will use. But if they fall on your table, especially, you know, an ironing board table like this, you'll never find them. So I always have this little piece here, or this little thing for small little pieces. I'll use one of these right at the bottom here, just to hold that piece down. So now we're going to do this piece. I'll need a bigger piece for the end here. I'll just lay that down like that. Make sure this is butted right up to there, and this part is nice and even. And iron it down. So this is it. There's nothing to this. It's very simple, but like I said, it takes some time. After a while, you just kind of get so used to where you put. I sort of put it all my heat and bond in the same spot. I've done this one design hundreds of times, so I know where I want. I know where the fabric is going to move when I get it to the machine. That one's going to give me a hard time. And you can just cut little bits and pieces. So, you know, I buy this by the yard. So a yard of this heat and bond stuff goes a long, long way, because you're just using tiny little pieces. This one is stretched a bit. Now, this part should be fairly exact. This part, it doesn't matter, because when you sew the back onto it, you're going to use up some of this end piece anyway. So concentrate on making the inside is more important than the outside. You want to have it somewhat matched, but if it goes over a little bit like this one little piece did here, it's not a big deal, because you're going to have a bit of a seam allowance around. So what's next? Let's put the wheel on. There is a right and a wrong way to this wheel, I have found. There we go, that's better. So I need another piece. Oh, there's one right there. Perfect. Nope, not perfect. It's sticking out. Now it's perfect. So again, make sure it's nice and tight there so that when you're stitching, I like to use a very fine zigzag. I don't want you to see the zigzag more than you see the pattern of the trailer. So I try and get this as close as I can so that I can use a small zigzag to go around all these pieces. Now, when I do this one, I will probably use black, a black thread. So when I zigzag across here, this will all stand out so nice. I'll do black on the whole thing because it'll pop all those colors out so nicely. It's too thick. Now when you have a piece like this piece here, you'll have to take your heat and bond in little pieces. And these are the pieces that you really want to have stuck down good, because the smaller the piece, the faster it moves. So I have that end. Now I'll do this end with another tiny little piece. Okay, now we'll do the hubcap. There's a tiny little piece here, perfect size. Put the little hubcap on there. Okay, so it's looking good. Now, next thing we'll do is the doors. So the top door is this one, I don't know, and it starts right here. There's at this line and this line, so it's right there, like that. And I need a little bigger piece. Sorry, my voice is disappearing on me. So I'll put that there and place. That's too wide. My iron would catch that. So I'm just going to trim it off. Perfect. I didn't do the top, so I will do a little piece on the top. I didn't make it quite long enough. Put this over here. That'll do. And the bottom piece just butts up to this, like so. And I have a little piece here that might work. And it does perfectly.